This is my project on Robert Blair. He's a professor and extension specialist in the Department of Fisheries, Wildlife, and Conservation Biology at the University of Minnesota. A little bit about his background. Couldn't really find much. Checked his LinkedIn. Doesn't have a big social media presence. There's not a lot about his intro to science. So all I can tell you is where he went to school based off his LinkedIn. He got his bachelor's from Cornell, his master's from UMich, and his PhD from Stanford. What I do want to talk about are the three citizen science programs he's involved in, which is Minnesota Master Naturalist. They're all extension programs at the University of Minnesota. Master Naturalist is a program to get adults informed and involved in the science community. So getting them involved in some projects, getting them informed about Minnesota's natural resources and stuff like that, and then that's in hopes to have them inform other citizens and people in their community and kind of have like a tumbleweed effect like that. Driven to Discover is middle and high schoolers, getting them informed and involved at an early age. I think it's pretty important, pretty noble work. And the Minnesota Bee Atlas, which is a citizen program which has volunteers map bee distribution in Minnesota. Does he have any cool hobbies? Like I said, couldn't find much. Not much about him. All I know is that he likes citizen science, and he has an interest in aviation, and we'll get to that later. But his main research is in how urban developments affect aviation species, or birds. So what do I admire about him? I admire the work that he does. I can find myself doing that one day. That's the type of work I want to do, research, doing stuff in the field. Getting involved in the community is something that I truly admire about him, keeping citizens informed and involved. Not every scientist is involved in citizen science programs like that, and I think it's good to get citizens involved and informed, and I've said that a lot. But that is something that I admire about him. His field of science and a few questions he's asking, like I said, the main thing he's been doing for 30, 40 years is seeing how urban developments affect birds, basically, and sometimes butterflies. I'll read off a few titles from papers he's been an author on. Butterfly diversity in human land use, species assemblages along an urban gradient, land use and avian species diversity along an urban gradient, and birds and butterflies along an urban gradient, surrogate taxa for assessing biodiversity. Those are some questions that he's asking. I know my camera kind of skews this figure a little bit, but if you go to my sources, you can find the full data figure. Let me see. It's going to be too much of a hassle, but only missing out on a few columns. This is from a paper, Factors Influencing Bird Building Collisions in the Downtown Area of a Major North American City, that city being Minneapolis. What they did is they surveyed 21 buildings 3 times a day for 2 years, 2017, 2018, during 3 periods: spring migration, early summer, so the entirety of June, and then fall migration is when they did it 3 times a day. Bias just accounts for any bias in the trial, kind of self-evident there. But I think this is a really interesting data table to be looking at all the fatalities and figuring out how many buildings kill birds. A lot of buildings kill a lot of birds every single year, especially in Minnesota, U.S. Bank. What has he uncovered so far? What's next? So far in his research into aviation and urban development, Robert Blair has found that buildings kill a lot of birds in major cities. Tall buildings kill birds when they don't have any methods or anything done to them to prevent bird deaths, and that's what's next. It's, any tall buildings have bird-safe glass and whatnot, whatever. It's just protecting the birds that are dying. And then what's next? There's so much research to be done. He's only tapping the surface. So is everyone else. So there's just more extensive research that can be done everywhere. So overall, he's a professor at the University of Minnesota. He's involved in citizen science, and he is very interested in urban development's impact on birds. And then, excuse me, I don't know how long to show. I think it's 5 seconds for citations, but I have like 3 pages of it, so I'll just show each for a few seconds. But that's my project.